What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today, I felt like making the second installment of my What is Wrong with Your Overwatch League team series because the Dallas Fuel have been on my mind lately, and I feel that there's a lot to talk about with them. Some of you may not have seen the first episode I did on the Justice, so let me quickly explain how these types of videos work. So basically, what I do is discuss a team that I've been thinking a lot about lately due to them either severely underperforming or them just not being good to begin with. What I try to do is address some of these issues that bring said team down and talk about ways in which they can fix them and improve as a team moving forward. Before I continue, I quickly just wanted to say something to any of the unhappy Dallas Fuel fans who may click onto this video. I know this probably won't stop some of you, but just know that disliking the video or yelling at me in the comment section because your team isn't playing well will not accomplish anything. You can whine, scream, and complain all you want, but at the end of the day, it's obvious that Dallas is struggling, and complaining because you don't like what I say is not going to change that. Every team I address in this series receives nothing but tough love. I'm not here to roast a team just because they're losing a lot of games. What I'm trying to do is point out certain problems and discuss ways to fix them. Every Overwatch League team wants to win, and if a team is failing to do that, then you have to figure out potential solutions for them to get back on track somehow. And that is exactly what I want to do for the Fuel today. Remember, Dallas fans, it's only tough love. All I'm trying to do is help. So now we all have to ask ourselves the magic question: what is wrong with the Dallas Fuel? And don't say it simply because they had a hard schedule, because that is the wrong answer. Yes, having to take on the likes of the Vancouver Titans, NYXL, LA Gladiators, and Hangzhou Spark is a little bit brutal, but losing to the inconsistent Chengdu Hunters twice while getting your only win of Stage 3 against the Justice is not a good look at all. I'm also going to take a page out of Dividing by Zero's book by saying that you can only blame your strength of schedule so much if you really are a decent team. If the Fuel want to be considered a top 8 or better team in the league, then they have to win more than one game in a stage. Tough schedule or not, there's no excuse. If Dallas was a top team in the league, then they should have been able to keep things a lot closer in some of those losses at the very least. Oh, and don't give me that OGE and Uncle missed games excuse either. This lineup was at full strength in a majority of your matches, so it's obvious that they weren't making much of a difference. It really is a shame too. The Fuel had a decent first half of the year. Going 4-3 in Stage 1 and 5-2 in Stage 2 is something to be proud of, but what happened in Stage 3 is unacceptable. Going 1-6 while looking competitive against your opponents is one thing, but winning only 6 maps the entire stage like they did is very concerning. 5 of those 6 map wins came in 2 games, by the way. 3 of which came against the Justice too. They did nearly defeat the NYXL, which is something I give them credit for, but getting reverse swept by them takes away from that big time. Dallas had a top 3 team in the league right where they wanted them. Winning against the NYXL in dominant fashion would have been the perfect way to end a disappointing stage. But then, they took their foot off the gas and ruined a really good performance by Taimu. Why is it that the Fuel continuously fell short all stage long other than because of a hard schedule to a certain extent? Well, in my eyes, Dallas was struggling to adjust to the new Sombra meta. Although AKM has shown the ability to play a good Sombra in the past, it really didn't translate to the stage. Does that necessarily mean AKM was the problem? Well, it's hard to say. On one hand, he probably could have done a bit better in game, but at the same time, there were moments where the rest of his team failed to capitalize on EMPs and solo hacks onto specific targets. The Sombra in a majority of their games was not getting enough value, and Note for the most part was unable to pick up the slack on Zarya when running the 3 support, 2 tank, and Sombra setup that has become pretty popular amongst most of the teams in the Overwatch League this stage. After watching Taimu completely own Sabiobi in the Sombra matchup over the weekend, it really makes you question why the Fuel didn't play Taimu over AKM on Sombra more often this stage. And if the Fuel wanted to maintain a good Zarya on their comps, they could have done what the Valiant, NYXL, and Dragons have done by benching your Diva player in favor of a third DPS. Dallas really should have considered using Zachary, AKM, and Taimu earlier on in the stage. I don't know if they definitely would have done better, but it's hard to believe that they could have done much worse. If a 2-2-2 Rollock really is coming in Stage 4, then it would seem that Dallas already missed out on their opportunity to give this lineup a chance. Problem number 2 with the Dallas Fuel is them lacking a true flex DPS. This has been an underlying issue that people have talked about since the beginning of the year. Don't get me wrong, Zachary fans, I don't believe Zach is a garbage player by any means. It's more that he's being asked by his team to flex onto heroes that he doesn't have a lot of experience on. I understand that Coach Arrow has faith in Zach's abilities, but asking him to play projectile and just to flex a lot in general does not seem like a very good idea. The funny thing is, Zach actually hasn't been as bad as people seem to think. In fact, he's shown promise on Hanzo, Junkrat, and even Pharah to a certain extent. I believe that Zach has played fairly well in the Fuel's final 2 games of Stage 3. His projectile looks strong, and even his Brig was pretty on point. My biggest issue with Zachary is that he can't keep up this level of play consistently. There are stretches where he is pretty good, but then there's other moments where you almost forget the guy exists. The next thing we have to talk about when it comes to Zachary is how he sometimes hurts the rest of his team on Brigitte. Don't get me wrong, his Brig is definitely not the worst, and he's shown the ability to get the job done against mid to low tier teams, and even against the NYXL he looked pretty good. But for the most part, the moment that Dallas goes against a strong opponent, he struggles more often than not. If we exclude that match against the NYXL, go back and watch any of the other Fuel's matches against top tier opponents. You'll notice immediately that Zachary is one of the first players to die on his team a lot. It's very strange. I don't know if he feels extra pressure against good teams or something, but whatever the reason may be, there have been games throughout the entire year where he performs kind of poorly on Brig against solid teams in the league. Zach luckily won't have to worry about playing Brig much anymore if 2-2-2 becomes a thing, so that problem is most likely going to resolve itself on its own, but the true flex player thing will not. Although Zach hasn't been bad, I feel that Dallas would benefit from a true flex or projectile specialist on their roster. It's a shame that they had no interest in Mangachu. I feel like he could have been a helpful pickup. It's not the end of the world though, Dallas fans. There's still plenty of good projectile and flex players out there for you to sign. Think of any good player who's on either of these roles right now, and they would likely be of use to the Fuel if they signed him. I know one in particular that a lot of people have brought up is potentially signing Water from the LA Gladiators Legion. There's practically limitless options out there, so let me know what other flex DPS players the Fuel should consider picking up down in the comment section. Moving on from the whole Zachary and flex DPS thing, something else the Fuel have to work on is their main tank situation. If at all possible, Dallas should try their best to make sure that OGE is ready to go at the beginning of Stage 4. If not, then the team has to adjust to Trill's different style of play. Every single main tank in this league has their own style, and Trill's happens to differ from OGE's. In the 3 games that Trill has played in so far, I did not like what I saw from the team. The Fuel had to find a better way to play around him. The team seemed to function alright when Trill was on Winston, but I cannot say the same whenever he played Reinhardt. There were plenty of moments where Trill would be so far ahead of his team on Rein, and Dallas would just get punished because of it. I don't know who exactly is to blame here. On one hand, Trill may be making some simple positioning errors, but at the same time, maybe there's some miscommunication going on. If Trill and his teammates can get on the same page, then perhaps this won't be as much of a problem in the future. But again, that's only if OGE continues to take a break. If he comes back, then there's no reason to worry about this. I believe that if the Dallas Fuel play Taimu a bit more, get a true flex DPS, and resolve their issues on main tank, then they will be a better team coming into Stage 4. But even if the Fuel do end up making the end of year play-in tournament, will they actually be able to defeat some of the other teams who qualify? The Dallas Fuel tend to crumble against top tier talent. Let's say they run into the Dynasty or Dragons at some point. Is there any chance they actually win against them? With how they played in Stage 3, you'd have to think their odds aren't very good at the moment. But before we can even talk about the playoffs, the Fuel need to make sure they can take care of business by winning more than one game in Stage 4. They cannot afford to keep on losing so much. Teams like the Hunters and Valiant are right behind them in the overall standings, so anything close to what we saw in Stage 3 could put them on a one-way trip to Disappointment Town. We know that the Fuel have potential. We've seen what they're capable of when they play their best Overwatch. Now it's a matter of getting back into that Stage 2 form and finding a way to overcome opponents with a good record. Please don't disappoint your fans again, Dallas. They've already suffered enough because of last year. Find a way to get it done. Win a good amount of games in Stage 4 and make the play-in tournament. Learn from your previous mistakes and improve. And with that being said, that is going to wrap up this episode of What is Wrong with Your Overwatch League team. What do you think the Fuel need to do to improve as a team? Let me know down in the comment section. If you enjoyed this content, then be sure to like and subscribe. As always, thank you all so much for watching today's video, and until next time, this is ATP, signing out. Peace.